Welcome to the Pit Check, your weekly news for the best and heaviest new albums from your favorite extreme metal and hardcore bands. This week, Australia is once again proving why they are the top dogs for some of the nastiest metal and hardcore music on the planet. We've also got some grungy metalcore, some chaotic hardcore, and even some Deathgrind. And not all of them are from Australia, but a lot of them are. So make sure you subscribe to the channel because we do this every week. And let's get right into this week's best new albums. The hell is a Munt? Oh, it's me. The Australian Blackened Deathgrind band Munt have finally released their debut album titled The World Is Not Yours. This band straight up rips. They take everything I love from black metal, death metal, grindcore, noise, and even hardcore, and puree it all into some delicious devastation. After 9 years of releasing EPs, I guess they finally decided it was time to release a full-length album, and with it, they have perfectly crafted and refined their sound into their strongest and most mature work to date. Everything from the instrumentals to the atmosphere to the lyricism is so masterfully written and oppressively heavy. Honestly, they put it best themselves, describing the album as, quote, a dense slab of raw aggression sharpened by a bitter philosophical edge. This edge cuts like a rusted scalpel, dissecting the hubris, corruption, indifference, and complacency that underlie our sick society. Ooh.
That's great!
The Finnish hardcore thrash band Grey State have released their latest self-titled EP. If you love balls-to-the-wall thrash metal, but mixed with some black metal and a ton of hardcore, maybe you're a fan of bands like Cold Steel, pick this album up immediately. I don't say this lightly, but this EP is legitimately perfect, at least when it comes to the songs. I have zero complaints about the music itself. That said, I do have a massive complaint that this is only 3 songs long. Like, are you kidding me? That is such a tease. This is probably the best Finnish vegan hardcore blackened death metal band I've ever heard. But unironically, I need so much more of it. That said, Grey State has been around for like 9-ish years, so they do have quite a bit of backlog that should satisfy you until their next release. Welcome to Gloom, Texas. The San Antonio new metalcore band Gloom.tx has released their debut album titled Veiled in Velvet. This band is clearly inspired by bands like Deftones, Loathe, and Thornhill, that kind of dreamy, atmospheric, and emotional metalcore. But this one keeps a driving energy and a focused aggression, and makes sure to never water down the actual songwriting, which is something that a lot of those lower effort clones of the aforementioned bands tend to do. And that's actually a big thing I want to point out here. The songwriting and general musicianship here is so much better than expected for bands in that kind of Loathe-core genre. So many bands get away with having these like repetitive open chugs and then just shoegazy vocals and layers of electronics and just calling it a day. But Gloom makes it a point to have these extremely creative and bouncy riffs that are subtly extremely technical, but without showing off and overpowering these songs, which is honestly a veteran move. This might be a divisive point, but actually I personally really like how the vocals are like pushed way down in the mix. Again, a lot of bands would just have the vocals up in the forefront and just dominating the instruments to where you can barely hear them, so you can't really notice if they're not really doing a lot. But here, they actively make you dig through all of those chunky guitars, those pulsating drums, and especially that unbelievably groovy bass, just to even get to the vocals, making you appreciate every little layer. The Carolinas-based grungy metalcore band Excide has released their sophomore album titled Bastard Hymns. Trying to categorize this band into a single box is kinda silly. There's obviously this hardcore and metalcore backbone, but with influences everywhere from grunge to 90s and 2000s alt-rock to bits of early emo core and a solid amount of nu metal. And this does double duty as both being a love letter to those genres, as well as being the next logical step in their evolution. This is one all my ADHD family can appreciate. Every song is so wildly different from the last, with such a vast array of influences, while no matter what, always sounding like themselves, and somehow all of the pieces fit in the right place every single time. There are no rough transitions or rookie mistakes throughout this entire thing. I am astounded how well this album is written. Such a breath of fresh air to have a band that reminds you why grunge was so beloved in the first place, instead of just ripping off grunge riffs. And obviously selfishly, I love that they can do all of this without sacrificing any of the heaviness or screaming or breakdowns. It makes me so happy that this album doesn't just have random heavy songs that are just thrown in there to satisfy the old crowd, but instead that heaviness is a core part of their identity, and I hope that never goes away. 2004 Las Vegas Deathcore. The 2000s slam and deathcore band Misericordium, this was before the days of SEOs and algorithms, okay, have released their first album after 18 years titled Nothing But Machine Now. It's kind of a haunting title when you figure that they disappeared around the time that the MySpace phone was the peak of technology, and now they come back and we're in the era of dead internet theory and AI musicians. So yeah, maybe it actually is the perfect time to get more of that 2000s sloppy, violent deathcore. I love how diverse and technical all of this guitar work and riffing is throughout this entire album. And speaking of robots, this drummer might be one, but like a Cylon, not like an AI. And this vocalist is nastier and meaner than ever before. I had such a good time with this album. It has all of the grit and grime that I want from my 2000s brutal death metal, slam, and deathcore, with this like A24 level of craftsmanship where they can bring this really smart and elegant approach to something that is pretty disgusting. What if Knock Loose and Bayway had a baby? The Newcastle hardcore band VEXHC has released their latest album titled Death and a Soldier. This album is packed with so much aggression and especially those like high-pitched piercing barks, but with a ton of those hip-hop and rap influences, especially in the vocal patterns, and no shortage of spine-shattering breakdowns. I love the amount of variety this band has. They can bounce around anywhere from this tough as hell New York hardcore to these more low and devastating beatdown hardcore elements with a surprising amount of punishing thrash and even death metal passages. But no matter what, always including a ton of these old school riffs, melodies, two-steps, and especially grooves. The last thing you can accuse this band of is being generic or repetitive. I'm loving the thrash revival of 2025. The up-and-coming UK thrash metal band Struck a Nerve has released their debut self-titled album. This album feels like it's trying to run a 3-minute mile. From the starting line to the ending riff, this thing has the up-tempo, unrelenting madness of a cheetah with rabies. If you love that hard-hitting and more brutal thrash sound, maybe you like bands like Enforced or Power Trip or maybe even a little bit of Slayer, this band has that bludgeoning power you're looking for. And honestly, I really like how this band describes their intentions. Struck a Nerve are aiming to be the most aggressive and most intense thrash band the UK has ever produced. And this is how we mean to move forward. No compromise. The album reflects some of our shared interests, including the presence of violence throughout history. The world we find ourselves in today feels crazy, and a lot of it is nothing new. Has Johnny Craig been reincarnated? The Australian/Russian post-hardcore band Valiant has released this gorgeous new album titled Hidden Realms. This is some unbelievably elegant and transcendent music from Valiant Hearts. Not to sound crazy, but that's not surprising for this band. But between this and Galleons, it's getting more and more likely that vocalist and songwriter Thomas Byrne is an actual generational talent. If you like Swancore kind of bands like Dance Gavin Dance or Hail the Sun or A Lot Like Birds, this band is going to be your new favorite entry into this genre, if it's not already. The instrumentals are so groovy and jazzy and technical, and it's got more than you could ever want. Plus these absurdly creative and clever lyrics and song structures that give you so much to dig your teeth into on every single song. I know, we normally cover much heavier music on this channel, but honestly, this is such an impeccable record that you should absolutely check it out, no matter how heavy you like your music. And if you like post-hardcore, well, what are you doing? Go pick this up. And here is the full list of all of the albums that came out this week. If there's anything on here that I missed or anything that should have been on here, please let me know in the comments below. Or if you have a band or your friend's band is coming out with a new album or EP sometime soon, let me know in the comments or shoot me a DM. I'm happy to check it out. I mean, literally Munt I found because of a DM, and that was amazing. And of course, selfishly, if you have any merch that you're not using or you want to get rid of, shoot me a DM. I'm building up my closet for the winter. And that's it for this week. I'll catch you again next week for next week's best new albums.